Okay, the first thing that we have up on top here, each one of the tracks has a sensor wheel which is timed to the position of the track. If something happens, especially in trucking, this thing swings back and it gets out of alignment. You can see it's marked here. That should be the correct spot, but the way to appropriately set it is to get all tracks parallel. There's a test mode to enter on the console, which will read out the voltage that this sensor is sending, and then you adjust the wheel by rotating it to a different cog to adjust the voltage. It should be the same. That's how you set that up. Each wheel gets set independently, and during trucking, quite often those things bounce and change. So that'll be the first thing to adjust. Up on top, the control system. This starts the engine. This tells you your pressure for the vibrators. Engine details right there. This is your sensor switch. The number 1 position are with the sensors spread apart for normal curbs. Number 2 position is when you do the second set of sensors, which are close together near the rear of the mold. This is your track control. Basically, it's a forward and reverse, with center being neutral. This is the trimmer head, and it turns that on. It'll go in forward direction or in the reverse direction. That's the trimmer cutter. If it gets jammed up, that's why you would want to go into reverse. This is the conveyor control. When you put that in the forward position, it turns the conveyor on and loads concrete into the hopper. And then reverse will back it up in case you need to clear again a jam. These are the vibrator controls right here. Controls the frequency and the intensity of the vibration. This machine is equipped with 2 vibrators. These 2 vibrators will not be used, these 2 circuits. And this adjusts how fast or slow the vibration occurs. There's 2 vibrators mounted in the hopper, and you adjust these in accordance with how the concrete's coming out of the mold. It takes a little experience to get that going and figure out how to do that, but that's what you use these for. Over here, this is a switch to control the hydraulic flow. Push it down, will shut off the hydraulics to the mold and vibrator section, so that you have more power for tracking if you're just tracking around the job site. Pull it up for vibrator. This is also another override switch which simply shuts the vibrators off, or all on. This adjusts the rear leg backward and forward. This adjusts the front right leg. This lifts the conveyor up or down. You'll use that as you're pouring to make the conveyor either follow the terrain. The lower the conveyor, the better the angle will be for cement trucks. This is your hold down controls for the mold. One is the front and one is the rear of the mold. And in this position, it'll raise the mold up. This position is a hold position. And then this position actually puts pressure down on the hydraulic cylinders, which is the way that you use the mold when you're actually pouring a curb. Otherwise, the mold will pop up and won't stay down. Okay, what else do we have here? These pressures you essentially don't adjust. They're the pressures that these 2 control, the pressure of the hold down. Essentially, once they're adjusted, they basically stay in that position, and these gauges will read out what those are. They do have variable adjustments. There's a set screw underneath these knobs. They don't get used much. Sometimes they get stiff, and you can stick a set screw, stick an Allen wrench in there, and adjust them. This is emergency stop. We'll shut the machine down. You also have your E-stops. There's, I think, 3 of them around the machine side. This one gets mounted on the side by the mold. There's one in back here. There's one in front. If anybody hits one of these, the machine will stop. It won't shut the machine down, but it will stop the motion of the machine. And they're essential to have in the right spot.
They seem to frequently get hit when you don't realize it.
Yeah, so if something happens, nothing's working, check the E-stops, because the machine will run, it just won't do anything. And and you'll have a hard time figuring out what's going on. The machine is also large and unwieldy, so they're important because you can't see everybody around the machine. This is the computer control system. There's menu choices at the bottom. This is basically used for setup, calibration mode. There's a sensitivity mode for the steer sensor and the elevation sensor. If the machine should not track properly, or the elevation is the one that's used most often, if it tends to bounce up and down, you basically want to set this. If you push that elevation, it'll show a display, a readout on each one of the meters. And the further the dashes go up, the more sensitive. So if I raise this, I should explain what these are. Each one of these is essentially the tracks, or the 3 points of control on the machine. So you have left front, right front, and then the rear. And then when we've entered this elevation sensitivity mode, it brought up this graphic display, and since we're elevation, we're controlling these buttons here, which is elevation, and this is steering. So if I push the up one, you'll see the ticks go up, and they go all the way up to here, and then as you tick it down, you can see them back off. The further up it is, the more sensitive it is. You effectively want to adjust these to the most sensitive position without the machine becoming erratic. If they're very sensitive, any little vibration of the string or vibration in the machine will cause the machine to compensate very quickly, and you'll get some rocking of the machine. So you basically adjust this up until you get some erratic motion, and then you back it off a couple till the machine seems stable. What else do we have here? This is the menu readout. It tells you the parameters that you're working on, the calibration mode, and the manual will detail this. So what you have here, I've already explained: left front, right front, and then rear. And this is the elevation. If you get out of this mode, if we put it into a automatic mode, we see that there's an A here and an A there. The A at the bottom references the elevation, and when I push the AM switch, it goes to M. The same thing here, AM, it goes from A to M. And what that means is that it changes the mode of the elevation to manual or the steering to manual. When it's in manual, you can then use these buttons right here, up, down, or left or right, and that actually rotates the track when you go left or right, and this rotates the leg, this elevates the leg up or down. Each one of these has that. That's so you can control the machine manually, independently of the computer system. When you're doing that, in the manual mode, the light will flash. To get it to work automatically, you have to pick the run button. The light will go out. You have to make sure all of these controls are in the A position, or this will not be able to control it. So AA, AA, AA here. The other indicators simply indicate the position of the track, and honestly aren't really used in the operation. You don't really look at those too much. This is the switch here that controls whether or not you're sensing string in forward mode or in reverse. If it's in reverse and you're going forward, this doesn't actually change the machine from forward to reverse. It simply tells the computer whether it's going forward or reverse. You change the machine itself right here, reverse or forward. If this switch, if you're going forward and it's in the reverse position, the machine will not know how to steer it because it thinks it's going backwards, and so it will steer it in the opposite direction. So it's very important that when you change directions, that you switch this switch if you're in the string steer mode, where the machine is following the string. If you're in manual or driving it yourself, that does not matter. This switch here is an all-up switch, and that simply is used mostly when you get offline and you simply want to raise the machine up as quickly as you can, just raise the whole machine up. And that just raises everything together. Not necessarily proportionately. Sometimes you may have to go and raise a leg individually to get it to level.
Do you have to put it in manual before you use that?
I'm not sure if it'll operate. I think probably you do, but I don't know the answer to that question. Okay, this is the next most important thing down here. This is your steering control. When you're operating manually, when it's not steering off of the string, this will turn the tracks dependent on how this switch is set. This switch tells how the tracks will steer. This track mode is the two front tracks are straight and you're just steering with the rear track. This track mode is it will rotate the two front tracks and the rear track in a opposing position. This one will rotate all tracks the same direction based on this wheel. And then this mode is a crab steer mode. Actually, let me go back here. This mode is actually a front steer with the rear track straight. Front steer with rear track straight. This mode is crab steer.
That's crab. That's this too.
Oh, yeah, you're right, correct. This is a crab steer. This is crab steer. This is a, I think they call that coordinate mode, where they turn both the two front tracks in one direction and the rear track in an opposing direction. This is, you can turn the machine essentially in a circle by using this mode as tight as possible.